Thank you so much for being here. I'm Stacy, the Teacher Marketing Manager at ClassTag, and I'm going to let the rest of the lovely ladies in here introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm a kindergarten teacher. This will be my 17th year of kindergarten.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I am a kindergarten teacher, and this for the past 7 years, 5 years. And this year I will be kindergarten inclusion.
I'm Katie, and this will be my first year in special education, but this is my 6th year teaching overall.
Uh-oh, I think we lost Melissa. So, hold on. I think she's back. Let's see.
She's just the first day, so.
Hey, Melissa, we got you now.
Okay, sorry. I'm Melissa. I'm a 7th grade English teacher and journalism teacher as of this year.
Woohoo! Yay for journalism. All right, if you are joining us at home, let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. And if you've got questions, type them in there and we will answer them. So today we're talking about something that's close to my heart, and I think to a lot of yours as well, special education and English language learners. There are more and more of these, I think, every year, and it's a good conversation to have. So let's start with probably an easy question for most teachers, but maybe not for new teachers or parents. What is special education and ELLs? Take one at a time.
Special education is basically everybody learns a little bit different, but special education, that's specifically for those learners who need constant things built into their learning to help them to grow. And there's a huge range of it. And then ELLs or ESLs, depending on where you are. Those are your English as a second language or English language learners. So their first language is not English.
You did a great job explaining that. So let me add on and say what it's not. It's not what a lot of us may have experienced when we were in school. It's not like the bad room or the separate room. It's not a label. We try to embrace it in our classroom to make everybody feel like they're a part of the community. And we want to make sure either if you are the gen ed teacher, you want to make sure that all the kids feel like they're included in your classroom. If they're there all day or part of the day, we want everyone to feel like they're included. And if you're the special ed teacher, you are working with the general ed teacher to make sure that your students feel like they're a part of the community. I know a lot of parents come in and they talk about it and they're like, I don't want my child to feel like they're labeled. Well, that our goal is for them not to feel like that. That's not the goal. Things have changed a lot since we were kids in school.
I'll talk on ELL. English language learners are those students that are coming from usually a different country or are speaking in another language at home. And that alone, to teach a child that is learning English language can be very tough. And it also depends on the district, how they want you to approach in teaching these students.
And those ELLs, they could even be kids that you wouldn't even expect. They could honestly speak like maybe even close to perfect English, but some things just don't completely like switch over in their head, so they just need that little extra.
And I think one thing I'll add with the English language learners is a lot of those kids, while they might speak, good English or they're learning it, some of their parents can't speak English yet. So it's not just the student that you're working with, you still have to communicate with that parent as well in their native language. So What are some best practices for doing that?
For me, making sure that because it's called when a child is
Oh, did we lose her?
Uh-oh.
Somebody want to take over for a second until she can come back in there?
I'll speak. One thing I have done in the past, if it was a student that speaks Spanish, I have translated everything that I'm doing so that the student understood what I'm doing. So they have an idea what they're learning as well. And I also have taken the time to speak slower for them to learn what I'm saying and breaking things down. I find that when it comes to kindergartners, because I am speaking kindergarten level, is that I treat all of them as English language learners, by the way, because they've only been on the earth for very little years and they've just started understanding how to speak English. But we now have to start building the foundation. So I can speak on that level, like early kindergarten to second grade in that sense. But those are some of the things. I've had depending on the school, because I've been in multiple schools, I've had teachers tell me, no, you're not supposed to do that. You speak English the entire time. I disagree. I'm the rebel. So forgive me. I like to get into good trouble because if I was that student, if I put myself in their shoes, I want someone that can speak to me if they know my language. And I also pair up students. So when I do have, we do have Spanish and Indian, Asian population, and now we're getting the Slavic, Russian. If I see that there's a group of students that actually can speak that language, I also group them. And one of them could be that leader of the group or my model in that sense. Anyone else want to take on this one?
I had a student come in that they had told me ahead of time they didn't speak any English at all. So my first goal was, if I was coming into an environment I didn't know the language, what would my most important things for the day be? Obviously, I would need to know how to use or ask to use the bathroom. So how could that student communicate with me if they weren't able to speak any English? And I also wanted to make sure that they were able to get something to eat and drink, because when your child comes home from school for the day, you want to make sure your main concerns would be like, were their basic needs met? Like on the very first day, I wasn't concerned if they learned every single thing that I said. I wanted them to feel welcome and know that they could, get to the bathroom, get something to eat, and feel like they were safe. So I had some pictures printed out, that kind of thing. But I also used the translate feature on ClassTag with that family. So I was sure that the parents could understand what I was asking, and then they could send it back to me and I could understand as well. And then initially we worked out some of my questions and we moved on from there and had a really great relationship.
And I think, building on what Jasmine said, treating them all like they're, English language learners, or even that they all need certain accommodations, because they do. That's called differentiation. So just making sure that every kid gets what they need. It could even be something as simple as sitting closer to you so that they can hear you better. I had a situation last year where I had a child who had a hearing aid and a child who was technically an ELL. They just sat together because they were like best friends, but it actually worked out better for them because they were able to work together, and they sat at the front right where I was standing all the time so that they could hear me and be closer to me. So it just worked out that way. Just simple little things like, seating, small things like that.
Well, and for me, I taught eighth grade mostly when I taught, and I live next to an Air Force base, so we would get a lot of German exchange students, and so we used a translation app because they could type, and so could I. So we would use a translation app to talk back and forth until we got some English in there because I wanted them to be able to ask questions and not feel lost on the assignments. I also translated my assignments into German. I don't know how well they translated, but I did try. There was a specific translation app that we used. It wasn't Google Translate because this one was a little more accurate. But that made them feel, welcome. It made them feel like I was actually trying to reach them. So even though sometimes we still were kind of off, because translation apps are only so good, it was that effort that I put in to make them feel welcome in my class. So why would you say communication is so important with these specific audiences? I really want to focus on the parent at this moment. So your special education kids and your ELL parents. Why do we need to communicate with them?
I think a lot of times special education parents always feel like they have a lot they have to share. I was reading some things on my social media timeline, and one of my friends had posted that she was making a PowerPoint because her child has some needs and a whole bunch of teachers. And she felt like that was going to be a lot for people to read. And I said to her, "You are your child's best advocate. Don't apologize for being an advocate for your child. If you don't share it with the teachers, they're not going to know." And so I feel like those parents feel like they're talking a lot all the time. And some of them don't know how to say what they need to say or want to say in the best way. And sometimes we have to meet them where they are and just let them know, like, hey, we're here for you. We're on your team. We care about your child, and we care about you too. We want to help your child be successful. So I feel like a lot of times parents are in so many meetings and answering so many questions, it can be exhausting and overwhelming. They just want to see like a friendly face and hear a friendly voice and just know that like someone cares about their child, and that you're just there to see them be successful, whatever that may be for their child. Because when it comes down to it, it's their baby, and they just want their baby to come to school and learn things and make progress, just like everyone wants for their child, because it's their child too. They want the same things too, just like everyone else does.
I like to continue and piggyback off of Jen that another thing parents also want is be heard, and not to be made feel like they're not, or that they're less important. Okay. I do see that one of our Facebook viewers wrote, filling out forms, know their rights, knowing their children are okay. That is the most important thing when dealing with either ELLs or special ed children. You will get a parent that's a little hostile or aggressive. Okay. And when you do get that type of parent, understand that it's coming from a little trauma there. Okay. From years of not being heard or years of not being understood. So you as an educator, especially if you're new at education, you have to have patience. Don't just, oh, here we go again. Oh man, now what? No, we can't do that. You got to put yourself in their shoes. Sometimes you have a parent that, especially when it comes to our special needs, they are overwhelmed, especially when it's going through the IEP process. Okay, they're overwhelmed. They want everything right now. And now we're post-pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is a wait now. Everything is, it's like, I'm sorry, you have to wait. Or I let my parents know, okay, you want that evaluation checklist, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, have this ready so that you have everything set. As an educator, you are an advocate. Don't be afraid. I've gotten, like I said, I'm the rebel. I got into good trouble this year for one of my students because I did not like what they were doing. I did not like how they were treating the parent. It was like, well, the parent should have known. Well, the parent went to this school and now no. They are looking to you. We are the experts to them. And if you don't know, it's okay to say, I don't know. Go to one of your colleagues and ask. But communicating at all times. This one parent, I communicated when the child didn't have enough diapers, when the child had a bowel movement. Like I documented everything. And that's something I do like about ClassTag is that they have that nifty little documentation part, right? Best thing about ClassTag, I tell you.
You mentioned being helpful. I had a boss that was really good at that. When parents seemed like they were overwhelmed, she was always so gentle, and she would call and say, listen, if you need help, bring the papers in. I'll be happy to sit down with you and help you with anything you need help with. She was always so great at being very kind and loving when she would talk to the parents.
And I think something we need to consider is that IEP is a really long document for certain kids. My son has one, and it's a very long document. And for me, as an educator, that wasn't necessarily difficult for me to understand. This is my world. For my husband, it was like Greek because it's not something that he does every day. And I think we need to realize that these parents, they don't live in, the education world, most of them. They have no idea what all of that is. So it is overwhelming for them, and they might be coming into that, into that meeting frustrated because they don't understand it. And so whatever we can do to break that down and make it easier for them. And I think the other thing is some students, it looks like their parents aren't advocating for them at all. And I think it's because the parents don't know. They don't know what resources are available. They don't know any of those things because no one's ever told them. And it's hard to advocate for your child when you don't know how. So if you're a teacher and you see that that student needs something and they don't have it, it's okay to reach out to that parent and say, hey, you should advocate for this. Like, I think this would benefit your child because you know better than they do, probably, not always, but you probably know more about what services would help that child. It's okay to suggest. I don't think most parents are going to be upset about that. I know I wouldn't. When I found out my son was, autistic, I had no idea what I was doing. And I am an educator. But I think those parents also come from that frustrated place because how long have they been fighting to get their child, diagnosed with whatever it is? You spend a lot of time going to doctors and them telling you, no, you're just reading too much into it. They don't listen to the parent that lives with that child every single day. And your child. If you feel like something's wrong, keep fighting for them because you're probably right. And eventually you're going to get there. But it took me 2 years as an educator who knows the signs, who knows the things to look for. 2 years. And that's very frustrating. I'm sorry. I'm off my soapbox now. I just need to say
you're so right. And that's the thing. When you're an educator, you spend a long time with people's children. And sometimes you have to have those hard conversations. And when you're a kindergarten teacher, early ed, sometimes you're the first person to have those hard conversations with parents. And but you have to say, like, I spend 7 hours a day with your child. If I'm not honest with you about how your child's day is going, who's going to tell you? And so that's when you have those important conversations so that you know to go to your pediatrician. And that's advice that we give a lot because we're not doctors. So we can say, this is something I'm noticing. You can take it to your pediatrician. I'll be happy to, coordinate with the pediatrician. There's a form that we fill out in our district to release confidential information between the offices. It's just simple check yes and no thing, not more, red tape to jump through. But you can't be blaming yourself for things like that. Thank you for sharing your personal experience, Stacey. I know it's not easy to share that with everybody, but it will help someone that's watching for sure, because it's like us going to the doctor and trying to understand medical jargon. And a lot of times I struggle with that. I have someone in my family that works in the medical field, and when I don't understand, I send it to them. And so for parents, you have to sometimes talk them through it, and you can say, like, this is what our school has available. Would you like me to look further into that for you? All I need is your permission, your written permission or verbal permission, depending on your school's procedures. And I say, what's the worst thing that could happen? The school says, oh, sorry, your child doesn't qualify. And wouldn't that be great news? And if your child does qualify, then we're going to get them the help that they need. And if we start early, your child may not need those services anymore. It's important to get those services early for early intervention type things where Jasmine and I are working, because sometimes when you catch those things early, they can be treated well, and your child will move out of early intervention services and have those strategies as part of how they work in environments in like school or home too.
Also, let's move the stigma. Remove the stigma that's associated.
Absolutely.
I'm just like Stacey. I don't have a child with autism, but I do have a high schooler that has an IEP, and that's why I did took 3 years for speech, and the 4th year for the diagnosis of specific learning disability and things like that for my daughter. Oh my gosh, I just blanked. Don't you hate that when that happens? I'm having that moment of blank.
But you're also an educator, and you know how things work, and it still took a long time for you too.
It happens that way. And the thing is about fighting. Oh, that's what I wanted to get into, the stigma. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because a while ago, a few weeks ago, I started thinking about how I'm going to address my parents now that I'm doing inclusion. And there's a stigma there about having your child in an inclusion class. I've heard it many times. They're like, well, my child is smart. Why do they have to be with children that need the extra help? And in my thought process, the one thing I'm pretty sure our viewers, our new teachers are going to experience this, is you let the parents know that majority of the time in an inclusion class, let's say you have 28 students, and that's a lot, but where I'm from, that's the norm. That's the norm. Out of those 28, 3 students, by some luck, in kindergarten, you may have 3 that have an IEP, or maybe 1. And because they have that, by law, we have to have a special ed teacher. So coming into this September, I go back to school in September. I already have my list printed out. I've noticed I have no student with an IEP. So does that still count me as an inclusion? Yes. But we also like to encourage and tell our parents that it's okay to have an extra teacher in the class, especially when it's the younger grades, because we want to focus K-2, including pre-K, but K-2 is such an important time of learning, of reading, math, that you want to make sure that they have that, again, that strong foundation. And I'm also talking about dyslexia. And I know we're going to get into more later down the road, and we're going to do more segments on this. But one thing I wanted to say is that with certain reading problems may also come with behavioral differences. And that's another thing. And I know that's another topic that we can all get into, but just remove the stigma, the label. Okay. Parents are worried about that. It's not a label. It just means you want your child to have that extra help. They're still an amazing child. They're still intelligent. It's just they kind of see the world different, and we have to teach and grow with them and change with them. We're just like IT techs. We're constantly, as educators, we have to do webinars. We have to constantly keep ourselves up to date with the world of education and what are best practices. And if we stop learning, we become stagnant. I don't know. But class tag, this is one thing I love about class tag, because we can utilize different features on class tag to help our parents, especially our ELL parents, especially with sending documents. Oh, let's get into that, girls. Let's talk about how class tag can help.
Okay, so as a parent of a child who had an IEP and has, the speech therapy and the occupational therapy, and, then you've got the gen ed teacher and the special ed teacher, that's a lot of people to try and coordinate and communicate with. And one of the things that was very frustrating for me was not being able to contact half of them. I had the special ed teacher's, information so I could message her, but I couldn't get a hold of the rest of them. So if I have questions about, what do we need to do to work on the things that we're working on in speech therapy, or we're working on in occupational therapy, because I want to make sure that, he's going to make his goals, but I couldn't get a hold of them. So in my head, class tag would have been a great option for this, because you can connect all of those people in that one place. And then, if I needed to message like the whole group and be like, okay, where are we at on our goals? I could do that. And then they could each message me back. It would have been a great way.
You could also have a group message too. I did that. I've had the inclusion room, and I added the special ed teacher as a student, and she was just the parent of herself. And then I could put her into a group chat with a parent of a student that we both shared. So that way I didn't have to send a message, because if a parent prefers to communicate on class tag, then that's perfect for me. But we put a group chat where we were both in it with a parent, and then all of us could communicate in one place instead of a chat, and then a copy to an email, and then this and that. I know that our speech therapist is excellent with her emails, so that's the best way to reach her. Each person kind of has their own way to communicate in our district, so that I could see it to be very frustrating. But that's a really good suggestion to bring to my district, and I am trying to get our parent teacher organization there, try to get everybody, all the school things into one category. So that would be a great suggestion for me as a teacher from a parent. So thank you.
We have a very good question here. How can we use it, meaning class tag, for special ed information legally? And we have concerns with privacy and confidential issues with certain communications. Oh, okay. That is such a good question.
It is a good question, and I do have an answer. So one of the things that class tag does is they go through a certification process with iKeepSafe to be FERPA and COPA compliant with that. So you can use student backpacks to send that information, and it is protected because of that certification.
You can also set up, I'm a really big person on privacy. There's also ways in your main feed of class tag to make sure that you turn off parent commenting, parent reactions, parent to parent messaging, so that you can make sure that, oh my goodness, my comment section has gone wild, like sometimes happens in a Facebook feed. You don't want that to happen on your class tag page while you're eating dinner or sleeping. So you can set up your privacy settings in class tag to make sure that you're the only one that's writing. I turn off the reactions as well, because it's just no one's business except for mine, because I am the leader of the class. And if you have a question, you can contact me, because that's what my role is. You don't need to intercommunicate. And you can also turn off group messaging. We've had some parent conversations go rogue, or people accidentally put something in the group chat that was definitely not supposed to go in the group chat. But there's settings for all of those things. That's one of my favorite things about class tag. There's things that we need to keep between the teacher and the parent, and that's why we have FERPA and all of those things. So I enjoy keeping everything locked down, because once you say it, you can't unsay it or unpost it. So check out your settings in your class tag. And if you need help with that, just drop us a message either on Facebook or Instagram. Somebody will help you find those things. But it's definitely been very nice to have those things. You can make it as safe, or if you like to have your parents intercommunicate, you can. But I do caution you, things can get out of control very quickly. We've seen it happen.
So I know you're concerned about parents learning any identification. That's what backpack is for. And the way you get to your backpack is through library. Once you click the library, you go on to where it says backpacks. And as an educator, you have all the kids' names on there. Think of backpack as being their own private folder. So you have to inform your parents. And even if you need a video on that, I could send or post a video on showing you how to do this. I've even taught my parents this is any private information, doctor's notes, court issues. I have to put that in there. Court documentations, anything of that sort, of that nature, or anything private I need to send, go to backpack, library, backpack. As a parent, they're going to see only the backpack for that child. So they put it in the backpack and they upload the folder. Nobody have access to that. Okay. Oh, there we go. They're going to
Okay,
show.
do you want to walk me through this real fast, and I'll click.
Oh, yes, I can definitely. So you're looking at our class tech account. So you go to library, the icon library, and files is normally open for you to put files for everyone, and that can be seen. But go to backpacks, and you can choose any of your child's name, student's name, bear hug. I always like bear hug, or whichever, and you upload the information there. It only goes to the parent, no one else. Okay. The only person that can see this is if you add in the directory, you add another co-teacher, or if you add your parent teacher to that co-teaching. Those are the only people that can actually see these private ones. But if you want to keep it totally private, it's just you and your co-teacher. That's it.
Thank you for sharing that. I have heard you speak about them before. I'm actually going to look into that more myself. I haven't used them very often.
I want to thank you, ladies, for being here for this conversation. And if you've got questions and we haven't answered them, put them in the chat. Even if you're watching this after we finish, put those questions in there. We're going to be checking that chat and we'll answer your questions. I'm sure at some point we're going to be talking about special education and ELLs further. There's a lot to talk about and a lot of, ground we did not get to cover in 30 short minutes. So we will also be back next week with a new topic. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, ladies, for lending your expertise. And everybody have a wonderful night.